Today I have with me a 2020 Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro, and in this video I'm going to give you a tour of this truck and all of its most interesting features. Then I'm going to share my impressions after having driven it for the past 3 months. Now the TRD Pro has a unique and aggressive front end design which is accentuated by the black hood scoop, special TRD Pro front grille, and of course the TRD accessory aluminum skid plate. Now there are a lot of different 4Runner trims in the Toyota lineup, and these visual differences help to make the TRD Pro stand out on the road. You can also see here that in this front grille the TRD Pro does come standard with radar cruise control. Here's the sensor for that, and then down below the aluminum skid plate, which does read now in raised red lettering TRD. Now the side profile of the TRD Pro is also unique, especially now that they do come with this roof rack. While the roof rack does have a very cool appearance, unfortunately its maximum load capacity is only 110 pounds, so it's not particularly useful. And then also on this TRD Pro, it is equipped with the Predator tube step, which also accentuates the bold and aggressive off-road look. Something that I really like about the design of all 4Runners, TRD Pro included, is that the rear window wiper is actually integrated into this rear spoiler, which makes for a very clean look. You can't see it when it's stowed away. Also, of course, the 4Runner has a fantastic rolling rear window. This rolls down so you can load stuff into the back. We do also have black badging on this one for the 4Runner and Toyota logos, as well as the TRD Pro logo, and a towing hitch with a capacity of 5,000 pounds. Now the headlights of this 4Runner are where it does start to show its age. This model was sold in the US as early as 2010, and the headlights have not changed significantly since then. They have received some minor visual updates, so we have a standard halogen bulb on this part here, which is for the high beam as well as the daytime running light, and then we do have a projector halogen for the regular headlight. Now in IIHS safety testing, the 4Runner did receive a rating of poor for its headlights, and it was for that reason that the owner of this vehicle decided to retrofit LED bulbs into the 4Runner. So now the performance at night is significantly better. Now the taillights on the 4Runner are significantly better. They are LED, and they do have a number of individual bulbs in here, which does look very nice. And even though it's not the newest on the road, it still looks acceptable. Now the TRD Pro comes with these very cool TRD wheels. You can get these on other trim levels, but it is standard on the Pro. They are finished in a 265/70 on a 17-inch rim. Toyota chose to outfit the TRD Pro with Nitto Terra grapplers. Now I know that these haven't received all positive reviews online because they are not the absolute best in off-road performance. However, I do think Toyota made the right call because these are much quieter than some of the competitor off-road more aggressive tires, and also perform extremely well off-road, especially compared to what most trucks are using. Being the TRD Pro, it does come with the excellent Fox suspension. You do get Fox tuned dampers and springs in front and rear, and I think that this is a really good option because the advanced tuning that Fox is able to do on these dampers is simply ahead of whatever lift kit you could buy in the aftermarket. So even though it's only a 2-inch lift compared to the standard 4Runner, and some people might be looking for more, if you want the absolute best in off-road handling, the TRD Pro will be the best option. Now let's go ahead and talk about the exterior build quality of this TRD Pro. To be honest, it's not the best I've ever seen. However, it is to be expected on trucks that the panel gaps will be generally larger. Starting here with the hood panel gap, something that immediately started bugging me is that the hood does extend a little bit further out this way than this front quarter panel does. So there's a little bit of a jump from here to here. Coming down the side of the 4Runner, we do have even gaps on all the door crevices. However, they are rather large, as well as around the top of the door, pretty large gap there. This is a interesting design with this window where they do have an exposed gap instead of a weather seal, but very even. Now, something that's not quite as good, and I also immediately noticed this one, is that the rear bumper is very tight along here, but then as it comes up this way, the gap does get significantly larger as it rounds this corner. And that is on both sides of the truck. Coming around to the tailgate, enormous gaps, but again, even on both sides. So at least it's consistent. And then on the other side, it's the same story with this rear bumper piece as well as the three doors. They're all evenly aligned, but with large gaps. And considering the size of all the gaps on this car, I would say that this is something that was designed into it. They are all very consistent on both sides, and this is just the way that the truck was designed to have larger gaps. Now there are two ways you can get into the trunk area of this 4Runner. One is the rolling rear window, which you can use by pushing this button here. Great for putting in smaller items. You can of course also open the tailgate, and I have to add, it is rather heavy, and I would guess that this is one of very few cars with an MSRP over $50,000 with tailgate of this size that is not power operated. You can see though the trunk area is rather large, which is nice. However, the large wheel wells in the back do protrude into your cargo area on both sides. So that's something you'll have to consider if you want to fit a very wide item in. You only have a narrower space at the front. Suppose you want to load a larger or longer item into the back of your 4Runner. It is capable of doing so because the seats do fold down. However, you are no way to fold those down from the back. So I'm going to have to go around into the back seat. All right, now that we've got a flat load area, well, actually it's not flat because there is a large bump here. And unfortunately, the way that this thing is designed is that you do get a raised area over the rear seats, which does make it more difficult to lay long items in here. The TRD Pro does come with this very large JBL subwoofer, as well as a convenient power outlet right here, which you can plug in anything up to 400 watts. And then we also have a regular 12-volt outlet here as well. Due to its large size, obviously the 4Runner's trunk is very utilitarian. However, compared to other larger SUVs in its class, the utilization of space in here is certainly not the best, and it's definitely not the easiest to use if you're trying to load in large items by yourself. Now let's go ahead and take a look under the hood of the 4Runner. Here we have the 1GR-FE 4-liter V6 engine. Now this engine has been around in some form or another since 2002. Now obviously it's been updated since then, and this version has an output of 270 horsepower and 278 pound-feet of torque. That's actually fine, but you're certainly buying this engine for its known reliability and not for its high performance, that's for sure. Something you're immediately going to notice is that the location of the engine cover is actually off-center. They've decided to locate it immediately above the driver's side cylinder head. Now obviously this is just due to the packaging of the intake tract here, but they have these 6 indentations indicating a 6-cylinder engine, but they are actually nowhere near the 6 cylinders in this engine. Something else that I've noticed when driving, and I'm sure you will too, is that right here next to the intake filter box is this. This is called the secondary air injection pump, and what this does is pump air into the exhaust. Now the reason Toyota has this in here is to help increase catalytic converter temperatures to help meet emission standards. This doesn't have any real effect on the performance of the engine, but it is a loud sound that under load can sound a little bit similar to a turbocharger because it is of the same centrifugal pump design. Now let's go ahead, step inside, I'll start it up and let you guys take a listen to that TRD Sport exhaust. Overall, I think the layout of this 4Runner is great. The seating position is comfortable. The seats themselves are comfortable. And we do have some nice touches, especially the red stitching that comes with the TRD. But generally a very functional and rugged interior. Not too many luxuries in here, but does everything you need it to do and does it very well. So this is what it's going to look like when you're driving the 4Runner. The steering wheel does have a lot of buttons. And these ones here are used for controlling the little digital display up here. Not too many functions on this. And then this is for changing your channels and volume. We do have dedicated answer and reject for incoming phone calls, which is nice. And then these are your controls for your driver assistance aids. We do have, this is to adjust the following distance for the radar cruise control, and this one is for turning on or off the lane keep warning. So in the actual gauge cluster itself, we do have a mechanical RPM gauge as well as a speedometer. And then in here, this little digital display has a couple of functions, but like I said before, not too many features in here. Over down here is where you're going to find all of your mirror and lighting controls. You got your dimmer for your instruments, and then this is the button for the automatic high beams. In my experience with this truck, it is not very good. I would recommend just adjusting the high beams yourself, because you will be flashing oncoming traffic if you use the auto high beams. They turn off much too late, in my opinion. You also here have a disconnect for the outlet in the trunk. The whole center control stack here is very truck-like, very vertically oriented, and lots of big knobs. I think that this infotainment system is a huge upgrade from 4Runners of the previous year. Obviously, you get a lot more features, and it's much more modern. You can do all different apps on here. You do have Apple CarPlay, and the navigation that's built in is fine. These are the climate control knobs, very solid, which is good to see, because this is the thing you're going to be touching the most here. Very good feel on these. Coming down here, we do have a tray for your cell phone. And this is another reminder that this generation of 4Runner came to the US first in 2010, because no modern cell phone is going to fit in this slot. Maybe in 2010, when they were using a little bit smaller of a screen size, a lot of people would be able to put it in here, and I think that's what it was originally for, but today's phones are just simply too big to go into this slot. Coming down here, we do have another defining feature of the 4Runner. It is on a truck chassis. It has an old school 4x4 transfer case. So here you can manually select high-speed four-wheel drive, or you can go into the low range with this lever here. Very solid feel to this one. This is the shifter, and also this one is special for the TRD models. It has a TRD embossed onto the top of it here, and you do get some nice red stitching on the side of it. There is a mode marked Sport. Nothing sporty about it. It's just a way to adjust what gear you're going to go into. The 4Runner TRD Pro does have this rather, I don't know, I don't think it's very tasteful, obviously fake carbon fiber trim. And then we have this, which looks like a standard window switch, because they did reuse the same type of switch for it, but this is for the rear trunk window. And then also we have here infinitely variable heated seats. It's a knob, and you can twist it as much as you like. In my opinion, this is far ahead of any luxury car with 3-stage heated seats. Much more advanced. Now, like most trucks, the 4Runner does have a very large center console storage area. It's quite deep in here. You can get a lot of stuff, although it does all just kind of roll around in here. It would be nice to have some kind of organization to this. The only things that we have here is this, which maybe you could use for coins. And then one of my absolute favorite features here is that it does have a little area where you can put some tissues. So if you take your tissues out of the pack and just put them in here, it has kind of a built-in tissue dispenser, and it's marked tissue just to make sure you know what it's for. Now, the 4Runner is obviously known for its excellent off-road capabilities, and a lot of that starts right up here, where you would normally find only just the controls for the sunroof and maybe the garage doors. So starting here, this is our first knob. This one is for the off-road crawl control. Now, basically what this is, it's kind of like off-road cruise control. You select a speed from low all the way up to high. All of these are very low speeds, by the way. And basically, it'll move the truck forward, controlling the gas and the brakes, and individually braking all of the wheels to make sure that you don't lose grip. Here, this wheel is your off-road drive mode selector. We have a number of different modes ranging in increasingly difficult terrain. Basically, depending on which one of these you select, it'll tell you whether to go into four-wheel drive high, four-wheel drive low, lock the differential, and then also it'll adjust the settings for the traction and stability control. here we do have a button to turn traction control fully off. A-Track, this is Toyota's advanced off-road traction control type system, and then here is your button for the electronic differential lock. Only a rear locker on the 4Runner. So standard garage door controls, and all the way off to the side, almost an afterthought, is this control for the sunroof. Obviously, off-road features are much more important to Toyota than what you would normally find up here, which is just this. All right, stepping into the rear of the 4Runner, it is definitely quite spacious. They do have a generous indentation on the roof here, so I've got plenty of headroom, and legroom is fine. I'm 6'1". I left the seat in the same position that I was using it in, and I've got adequate legroom here. Now, another nice feature is that these back seats do have the ability to recline, quite far actually. Overall, I think that the rear seat comfort is fine and the space is pretty good. The center armrest on the 4Runner, let's go ahead and fold it down here. It's a very weird shape, and that's because of these enormous oversized hinges that they've got. They have to make a huge cutout out of the center armrest. I think that's pretty weird, although this center area is very well padded, but this area is not. We do have two cup holders here, and you can take the rubber liner out, and maybe you need to fit something larger in here. So no pass-through, but I think that's okay because you can fold down the seats. Now, if you do want to fold down the middle seat only, you can do so. However, there is this enormous metal latch sticking out, which obviously it uses to connect to and to be secure, but this is quite funny, and you wouldn't want anybody bumping on this in the middle of your car. I've been driving this 4Runner for the last few months, and definitely there's some things I like and also some things I don't. First of all, this thing gets a lot of attention on the road, especially because of the army green color and just the more aggressive styling. I also like the driving position. You're definitely tall, but not quite as tall as you would be in a bigger pickup truck. It definitely gives you much more of a truck-like driving feel than many other SUVs that are this size. The 4Runner for the US market is pretty much the only SUV of this size that still has body-on-frame construction, and obviously you can feel that in the way that it drives. The Fox racing suspension definitely does the job off-road and also is reasonably comfortable on the road, but I find that it excels at ironing out larger bumps at higher speeds, and often when you're just driving around town and go over a small pothole at lower speeds, it actually can be quite jarring. The suspension certainly is tuned for higher speeds and maybe even jumping. All right, we're coming up onto the freeway now. You can hear that engine working. Yeah, so the exhaust is nice, and I think once you start to get above 3,000 RPM, that this motor does have a nice tune to it. But as you can hear now that I'm at highway speeds, there's a fair amount of tire noise and a fair drone from the exhaust, especially if you go up a hill while you're on the highway. It will stay in fifth gear, and you will get that higher load situation but low RPM, and for me the sound of that with this exhaust is actually quite annoying. The radar cruise control also works pretty well, and something that's funny that I've noticed about it though is that it does make an audible click when there is a car in front of you that is slowing down and it applies the brakes. There's some kind of relay which is very audible in the cabin, and it's almost reassuring knowing that the truck has seen whatever's in front and is going to be applying the brakes. Obviously, the 4Runner is not the best to drive on the road, not the most competitively priced, and certainly doesn't have the best features in the segment. So why is it so popular? Well, to me, the answer is very clear. This is just a cool car. It has something about it that puts a smile on your face to be driving a big, solid SUV, old-fashioned SUV, and there's just something about it that is very special. And for that reason, I think it is worth what they are charging, especially for this TRD Pro model. It's quite expensive, and you could get something much more luxurious, faster, more comfortable, with more tech features from competitors. But I think that the 4Runner just has something about it that makes you want it, and that's very clear in its residual value, because these trucks are so reliable and so sought after that even on the used market, they still do extremely well, and the TRD Pro does the best of all. So if you're at all put off by the rather high MSRP of the TRD Pro, I would definitely urge you to take a look at what these things are selling for on the used market, and definitely take that into account in your decision, because I really do think that it is an excellent buy, because you just get a unique vehicle and a really excellent road presence. And while it doesn't have the best fuel economy or the most comfort, I mean, that's not what you're after. You're after a rugged off-road experience, makes you feel like you're a rugged off-roader even if you aren't, and that's just something that is absolutely worth it. And if you decide that it isn't for you and you want to sell the truck, this is one of the best residual values of any car on the market in the US. Overall, I think that while the 4Runner may not be the most competitive in its segment, the cool factor is just too good to ignore, and it makes this a really good buy.